Frank Sinatra and Marlon Brando, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Hollywood has always been a stage for legendary rivalries, but most of the time, these feuds were just business, a performance for headlines and box office numbers. For Don Rickles, the undisputed king of the insult, making fun of celebrities was his business. For 6 decades, everyone from presidents to movie stars lined up to be roasted by the man they called Mr. Warmth. For Rickles, it was all supposed to be an act, a brilliant, scathing, hilarious joke that everyone was in on. But what if, for one person, it wasn't? What if, behind the comedy, there was one man who wasn't just another target? What if the acid-tongued insults and public humiliations weren't just part of the routine? For decades, the world believed Don Rickles' insults were pure performance, but one man seemed to be the real target of his fury. This is the story of their supposed rivalry, the tension that crackled every time they were in the same room, and the shocking reason Rickles could never, ever let it go. To understand this legendary feud, you have to understand the man who started it. Donald J. Rickles wasn't born a star. He was born in Queens, New York, in 1926, the son of an insurance salesman and a housewife. He grew up in a Jewish household, served in World War II, and came home wanting to be a serious, dramatic actor. He even enrolled in the prestigious American Academy of Dramatic Arts, walking the same halls as future legends like Grace Kelly and Jason Robards. Rickles dreamed of commanding a stage with the power of Shakespeare, but the dramatic roles just didn't come. Frustrated, he started doing stand-up in seedy clubs, where the audiences were often full of hecklers. It was in that fire that the Don Rickles we know was forged. Instead of backing down, he fired back, turning his sharp wit on the hecklers themselves. And he discovered something incredible. The audience loved the insults more than his jokes. They roared. He'd found his voice, not in a script, but in the spontaneous, brutal takedown of anyone who dared challenge him. This new insult comic persona was a dangerous game. He started calling audience members hockey pucks, a signature that stuck for life. His style was raw and fearless. He wasn't asking for the audience's approval. He was demanding their attention by making them part of the act, and they adored him for it. He took his act to Las Vegas, the glittering entertainment capital of the world. It was there, in the smoke-filled casinos of the 1950s, that Rickles mastered his craft, earning the title The Merchant of Venom. It was a high-wire act. The key to insult comedy is making people laugh, but it only works if the comedian can convince the audience he means what he's saying, even if it's all a joke. It's a benign violation. The insult is the violation, but the wink and the smile make it benign. Rickles was the master of this delicate dance. He'd deliver a devastating line with a deadpan face, only to break into a huge grin at the last second, signaling it was all in good fun. But to take this act to the next level, he needed a target, so famous, so powerful, that insulting them would be an act of pure audacity. He needed someone whose takedown would prove that no one was safe. And in 1957, that person walked into a small club in Miami Beach. The man was Frank Sinatra. Back then, Sinatra wasn't just a singer. He was an institution. The chairman of the board, leader of the Rat Pack, a man of immense talent and power. He was also known for a notoriously short temper. You didn't make jokes about Frank Sinatra. You didn't tease him. And you certainly didn't insult him to his face. It was a career-ending mistake. On this fateful night, Sinatra and his entourage walked in while Rickles was on stage. The room went silent. The pressure was on. But Rickles didn't miss a beat. He looked at the most powerful man in the room and said, "Make yourself at home, Frank. Hit somebody." The air crackled. As director John Landis later described it, for a split second, Rickles' career hung in the balance. But then, the impossible happened. Sinatra roared with laughter. he practically fell out of his chair, completely disarmed by the comedian's nerve. In that moment, Rickles got more than a laugh. He got a lifelong fan and a powerful patron. Sinatra loved Rickles' audacity so much, he started sending all his famous friends, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Bob Hope, to see Rickles and get insulted. Sinatra's endorsement was a golden ticket that made Rickles a Vegas headliner. This should have been the start of a simple friendship. And on the surface, it was. But beneath the public camaraderie, a more complex dynamic was born. A rivalry that would play out on America's biggest stages for the next 40 years. Sinatra had given Rickles his big break, but in doing so, he had created the only man in the world who could publicly humble him. And Rickles never let him forget it. The insults became a staple of their public act. On the Dean Martin Celebrity roast of Sinatra, Rickles essentially told Frank his career was over. He relentlessly mocked Sinatra's rumored mob ties, his temper, and his love life. On The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, their supposed feud became legendary. In one iconic appearance, Rickles burst onto the set as a surprise while Sinatra was a guest. He immediately launched into a routine, speaking mock Italian and making thinly veiled mafia jokes, a subject Sinatra famously hated. But Sinatra was in stitches, laughing uncontrollably as Rickles kissed his hand, then grabbed his face and kissed him on the lips. Their act was built on stories that blurred the line between fact and fiction. The most famous anecdote, a tale, told by both men, involved Rickles trying to impress a date. As the story goes, he was in a restaurant when his date spotted Sinatra. She asked Rickles if he knew him. Wanting to look good, Rickles walked over to Sinatra's table and whispered, "Frank, do me a favor. I'm with this girl, and I told her I know you. In a few minutes, could you just come by the table and say hello?" Sinatra agreed. A few minutes. Later, he walked over and said, "Don, how are you?" Without looking up, Rickles waved him away. "Not now, Frank. Can't you see I'm with somebody?" This constant back and forth created a narrative. Rickles, the court jester, was the only one brave enough to talk to the king like that, and the king seemed to hate him for it, even while laughing. The question on everyone's mind was simple. Why did Sinatra take it? And why did Rickles seem to enjoy it so much? The rivalry felt real, but the reason for it remained one of Hollywood's best-kept secrets. While the feud with Sinatra was his centerpiece, Rickles' comedic reign extended much further, especially to another legendary battleground, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Carson was the undisputed king of late night. An invitation to his couch could make a career. He was cool, unflappable, the calm center of the entertainment universe. And then there was Don Rickles. When Rickles first appeared in 1965, he walked out, looked at the most powerful man in television, and said, "Hello, dummy." The audience gasped, then erupted. Carson, a master of comedy himself, knew he'd found his perfect foil. That first appearance led to over 100 more, each a spectacle of chaos. In a moment of inspired irony, it was Carson who first gave Rickles the nickname that would define his career, Mr. Warmth. Their most famous exchange didn't even happen on The Tonight Show set. While guest hosting, Rickles accidentally broke the wooden cigarette box on Carson's desk. The next day, Carson found out and staged a surprise invasion, bursting onto the set of Rickles' sitcom, CPO Sharkey, during a live taping to confront him. The bit was legendary, a perfect example of their dynamic. Rickles causing chaos, and Carson trying to restore order with mock outrage. This was Rickles' genius, turning everyone into a target. He was a regular on the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts, a perfect showcase for his humor. He roasted his dear friend Bob Hope. He roasted Jerry Lewis. He even took on political figures. When he roasted then-Governor Ronald Reagan in 1973, Rickles, a lifelong Democrat, looked the future president in the eye and said, "Governor, I say this from my heart. I'm fed up with you." Years later, Sinatra convinced Rickles to perform at Reagan's second presidential inauguration. Standing before the most powerful man in the world, Rickles leaned into the mic and asked, "Am I going too fast for you, Ronnie?" No one was safe. He called Jimmy Stewart old. He told Clint Eastwood he was a lousy actor. He saw Bob Newhart, one of his closest friends, as the perfect target for his mild-mannered nature, calling him a hamburger with mayonnaise on white bread, and nobody was off-limits, not even his own family. His wife, Barbara, was a frequent subject of his jokes. He'd tell audiences, "I love my wife, but she's ill." In reality, Don and Barbara had one of Hollywood's most loving and enduring marriages, lasting 52 years until his death. One of his final tweets was a simple, loving message to her on their anniversary. This was the paradox of Don Rickles. On stage, he was the merchant of venom. Off stage, he was a loyal friend and devoted family man. The insults were a performance. His friends knew the venom was just a strange kind of affection. If Don Rickles made fun of you, it meant you were in the club. You were one of the hockey pucks, everyone it seemed except for one man. The public feud with Frank Sinatra just felt different. It was more personal, more pointed. With others, it was a game. With Sinatra, it felt like a war. And as the years went by, the question only grew louder. What was the real story behind this legendary hatred? The answer was far more shocking than anyone imagined. The story of Don Rickles is a masterclass in comedy, friendship, and the hidden truths of Hollywood. It's a reminder that what we see on stage is often just one part of a much bigger picture. If you're fascinated by these kinds of untold stories, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We love digging into the lives of the legends you thought you knew. And let us know in the comments, who was Don Rickles' best ever target? Now, back to the truth behind his epic feud with Frank Sinatra. For decades, the world watched the supposed rivalry between Don Rickles and Frank Sinatra and came to a simple conclusion. Rickles resented his benefactor, but what if that conclusion, the one everyone believed, was the greatest joke Don Rickles ever told? The truth is, there was no man Don Rickles truly hated. The man he built his career on destroying wasn't a person at all. It was an idea. The one thing Don Rickles hated more than anything was the phony. He hated insincerity. He hated pretense. His entire act was designed to demolish the idea of celebrity infallibility. In a world of yes men, Rickles refused to play the game. His insults weren't attacks. They were truth bombs designed to bring everyone down to the same human level, and no one was more surrounded by phonies than Frank Sinatra. Don Rickles didn't hate Frank Sinatra. He loved him. Their friendship was one of the deepest in Hollywood. When Don's son, Larry, passed away, Sinatra was one of the first to offer comfort. When Sinatra himself died in 1998, Don Rickles served as one of his pallbearers. The feud was an elaborate performance, a secret language between two men who understood each other perfectly. The insults were a sign of ultimate trust. Sinatra let Rickles attack him because he knew the jabs came from affection, not malice. For Sinatra, being roasted by Rickles was a release. It was the only time he could be treated like a regular person. In return, Sinatra gave Rickles the greatest gift a comedian could ask for, an untouchable target. So what about the shocking reason Rickles could never forgive him? That, too, was part of the act. But if you dig deeper, there is a poignant truth to it. In his final years, long after Sinatra was gone, the Mr. Warmth persona began to fade. He started to speak about Frank not with a punchline, but with profound love and loss, admitting Sinatra had been the closest thing he'd ever had to a brother. The shocking reason he could never forgive Frank Sinatra wasn't for any insult or prank. It was for something far more human. The one thing Don Rickles could never forgive Frank Sinatra for was leaving him. He never got a proper goodbye. When Sinatra passed away, a part of Rickles went with him. The greatest target of his career was gone, but more importantly, his dearest friend was gone. The performance was over. All that was left was silence. Near the end of his own life, Rickles opened up about the loss, admitting that not a day went by that he didn't think of something he wanted to tell Frank. He said he would thank Sinatra for seeing the real Don Rickles, long before anyone else did. The untold story of their bitter rivalry was, in the end, the untold story of a profound friendship. The hatred was an act of love. The insults were a code. And the unforgivable act was simply the painful reality of loss. The world's greatest insult comic pretended to hate the man he was closest to, all because their bond was too real for the phony world they lived in. Don Rickles passed away in 2017 at the age of 90. He left behind a legacy as a comedic pioneer, an actor, and the undisputed master of the insult. But his true legacy is more complex. He taught us that there can be love in laughter, that truth can be found in a well-aimed joke, and that the strongest friendships are often the ones that don't need to be spoken aloud. The feud with Frank Sinatra was his masterpiece, a brilliant piece of performance art that fooled the world for half a century. It was a story built on the idea of hatred that was really a testament to loyalty and affection. In the end, the one man Don Rickles truly hated wasn't Frank Sinatra. It was anyone who couldn't take a joke, who took themselves too seriously, who lived a life without laughter. And by that measure, Don Rickles died with no enemies at all. He had spent a lifetime turning opponents into friends, one hockey puck at a time. Thank you for joining us for this look at one of Hollywood's greatest myths. If you enjoyed the story, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more hidden histories of your favorite stars. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What is your favorite Don Rickles moment? Until next time, remember that sometimes the best stories are the ones we thought we already knew.